I want to sort of look at, as entrepreneurs, how we have our fingers on where the culture in this particular presentation, I'm thinking about technology, is going. And we're in the middle of probably the single most exciting moment in the history of the world in terms of technology. I was the first person in Pratt to get a Macintosh, and I had it in my classroom. My cell phone is now 100 times more powerful than that Macintosh. So let's look at what's going on in this technology. First of all, Ray Kurzweil points out that what's going to be like in 100 years? So, well, go back to 1900 and think about what happened. Total mistake. Because in the next 100 years, we're not going to experience 100 years, we're going to experience 20,000 years. Because the rate of change is accelerating. So there's more change every year than there was the year before. So this is Moore's law. The capability of the computer chip doubles every 24 months. But that's a logarithmic curve. Now this one's internet use. If you do a linear curve, it goes like this. It's just going straight up. Now what you say, well, my laptop, if they double every 17 minutes, in capability. I'm not going to buy a new laptop every 17 minutes. Well, Wikipedia doubles every couple months, and you don't buy a new paper encyclopedia. You just log in to get it. So that is conceivable. And it's not just that kind of technology. It costs $20 billion and 10 years to sequence, find out all the ACTG of the DNA of the first person they did that with. Next year, we'd be able to get a kit for $1,000. So the cost has come down. And so we're seeing this incredible explosion of technological change. So let's just look at a bunch of technologies. This is an Orion quantum computer. A quantum computer, when they're fully capable, will be more powerful than if every particle in the universe was a supercomputer and they were all connected. Now, how can a computer be more powerful than the universe? Well, the answer is it harnesses its siblings in parallel universes. That's how they work. Networking. Everything will be hooked up to, connected to everything. I mean, you're not going to let your kid out of the house without implanting this little piece of rice, under their skin, and you just GPS track them wherever they go. People already do that with their dogs and cats. Information theory. This is Shannon who developed the theory, and this is something wild. Fredkin's able to show that you can do computation without consuming any energy. Nanotechnology, this is a little bread box you'll have in your house, and you just program it and it'll make anything you want, typically out of carbon, which is the cheapest stuff there is. So everything will be made out of diamond, because that's what diamond is, just carbon. This is a little robot treating a blood cell, and as this is envisioned to be used. This is graphene, where each one of these dots is a molecule. Those are our computer chips of the future. Each atom is filled with dozens of spins that could be programmed for on-off to make the next generations of chips. We can now isolate single photons. We can do incredible things with recombinant and manipulated DNA. Craig Venter, who beat the government to sequence the human genome, he says, I'm going to do it for $3 billion with a private company. Right, he says, you got a problem with too much carbon dioxide? In 6 months, I'll have a microorganism that'll eat as much carbon dioxide as you want. This is the spider goat, and spider is 20 times stronger than steel, but it's kind of difficult herding spiders, and it's like getting all that spider silk out of them. So they take the DNA that makes the spider silk protein, put it in a goat, and you just milk the goat, and there's then they make cables out of that. So that's being done now. So how do we make things? And we're sort of like approaching a new generation of how we make things. We made things organically. Paleolithic period, you took stuff from the ground and you manipulate it with your body. Eskimos chewed on seal skins to get them to be soft. They didn't have the chemistry of tannin to tan the leather. And then with craft, we could, when you fire this, it alters chemically. We use alloys and metal, but things are still made sort of individually. And then we have Henry Ford and the production line, and even our cell phones are now still made that way. But there's some new possibility. What if you wanted to make an oak tree? Well, you take a whole bunch of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, some water, and sprinkle in some rules. It's called the DNA in the acorn. And let let it make itself. Why aren't we making our cell phones that way? So if you're interested in technology, the most mind-blowing tracking of this is Kurzweil, Kurzweil, AI.com. That'll be on the screen later. I'm sorry, .net. This morning he had a description of how they're going to make the next generation computer chips, where these little graphenes will arrange themselves, because you can't go in there with small tweezers, and because we're talking about a molecular level. So they're now doing that, making things grow themselves. So our understanding of this begins in 1953 when Watson and Crick figured out how DNA worked. What they figured out was that it's an alphabet of 4 letters: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, A, T, C, G. So you have an alphabet with 4 letters, and you have 2 rules. A and T can link, G and C can link. 4 letters, 2 rules, you make all of life. Then getting beyond biology, at the same time, Johnny von Neumann and Stanislav Ohm, 2 of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century, at Princeton Institute of Advanced Studies said, could we make a machine that self-replicates as a little robot? And it was totally, they had no way of doing it, but just theoretically could it be done? And they came up with the idea of cellular automata. So if you go to Wikipedia and you put in Conway's Game of Life, you see this guy, and this arrangement here is making these guys. It's just manufacturing them. And you see them, it's animated, it's actually things are coming out. So you make a set of rules. This is called a cellular automata, where you have black and white squares and a bunch of rules. If you have too many squares around you, you disappear. If there's fewer squares around you, you reproduce into the next iteration. And people have been fooling around with these now for 40 years. It's been a big jump when Stephen Wolfram, working with these, could generate very complex forms. One of these, this guy here, will make a computer. This right around the 100th row is a computer. And so a very simple rule of, if these 2 dots are black, this one will be white. There's only 8 rules. He can make these complicated things. And he says, this is how nature's doing it. It's not using like Newtonian mathematics. He thinks that 6 lines of computer code, computer-like code, makes our entire universe. And he's working on finding it. Now, talk about the defiance of taking on the world. These guys are amazing. This is a Mandelbrot set. Reasonably simple rule. You can zoom in on this indefinitely. Infinite complexity from very simple rules. Very simple rules can make our infinitely complex universe. And here are some using these principles to make new materials. And the first will be computer chips, because people pay a lot of money for them. This is a guy named Gershenfeld at MIT. He's got something about a quarter of the size of this room. He can take it to Africa. You can make anything. You need a bicycle. You need a cell phone, you need a part for a water pump, they just make it. So you don't need a whole factory, you just like a printer can print anything. You need a page from a book, you can print it on your desktop printer in very high quality. There are 3D printers which just print down layer of that kind of ink, and eventually you got a little 3D thing. So he's got functional 3D printer that can make anything. These are some architects working with these ideas. They're all at Pratt. Elisa Andrzejczyk puts in rules and gets these guys. Manfredini, she does a lot of stuff with fashion, puts in rules, gets these guys. This is Carl Schuh, a colleague of mine at Pratt. He can spin these cellular automata around globes and make worlds. And this is what his students do at Pratt. He gives them 3 genes, A, B, C, and they develop a set of rules. And by the end of the semester, those rules have built the building. They don't design the building. They're given 3 genes, they make the rules, and the buildings grow themselves. A lot of architects are thinking now of, like, how do you make an oak tree? You wouldn't just like, well, let's put on a branch here and a branch. No, just put the rules in there and water it. This is a colleague of mine, Haresh Lavani. He does this in 27 dimensions, and then he pulls it down to 3 dimensions. So he spins around in these 27-dimensional universes, and he gets these kind of guys, and they're in the permanent collection of Museum of Modern Art. So if you're interested in this stuff, this is a company that fabricates Haresh's stuff, milgobufkin.com, with or without the hyphen. Here's a website that looks at this genomic theory I was just talking about. It's one of my websites, generativegenomics.com, and gives you all the background of this. And these are the references I was just referring to